Welcome back, ordinary people, to a very special episode. Today is actually our 25th episode. So, in honor of this special date for us, we are going to be doing a bit different style of episodes. Over the last 25 episodes, you have heard some powerful testimonies of resilience and determination in the midst of adversity and hardships. And so with that, we want to kind of revisit and highlight some of those stories and some that have had an impact on myself and I know have had an impact on so many of you. So this episode will have clips from some of the greatest episodes we've had to date. And not all are included. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to include all, but most all of the episodes, clips from those episodes are included in this special edition episode. So this is our final week of doing kind of non-traditional episodes. Back next week we'll have another interview for y'all, so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy this special 25th episode special.
Yeah, discipline in the moment never feels good. It never does. And when you get down the road and you realize, hey, I mean, for those people who, not me, of course, but those people who spend time in the gym, that discipline doesn't feel good in the moment. It doesn't. You're straining yourself because tomorrow that strength is just going to build. And when you take and you deprive yourself of something that your flesh wants, that discipline never feels good. But the payments that it makes down the road, when you see God remain faithful because you were faithful, you can't ever go back and say, hey, that wasn't worth it.
Man, that's good. That's been a struggle for me lately, is putting down my fleshly desires, disciplining myself to do something hard that I know is going to impact me for the better down the road.
That's right.
And it's hard because you don't want to do that. You want that instant gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
That your flesh desires. Like working out. I'm trying to get into this routine where I consistently exercise, work out. And it's hard right now with work and all of this. But, I sort of use that as an excuse a lot of times. Or I let my flesh get in the way. I want to sit here and watch this movie or...
Yeah.
Scroll on my phone or...
Well, we live in, and it's evolved so much in the past, 20 years or so, but we live in a world they're used to Amazon Prime. They just are. I can have it at my door as soon as possible. And not to say that people don't work hard. I think people still work hard. There's still, that American dream, that might behind it where people want to go out and they want to put in the work. But when it comes to our personal lives, a lot of times we want the results without putting the work in. We want to say, oh, well, there's an easy way around. And I just make it very clear, there are no shortcuts when it comes to God's plans, when it comes to what he has for you. You can see time after time throughout Scripture where people said, oh, but it's a whole lot easier if I just do it my way. And it never turns out the same. It never does.
It doesn't. People don't want to be patient.
That's right.
And wait for the result. Just like with Amazon Prime.
That's right.
You get mad if your package doesn't arrive in 2 days like they said.
I got one of those emails the other day. It said, your package will be delayed 2 days. I was like, but I needed that. But at the same time, I didn't need it. It was coming either way.
It's that instant gratification that our world has kind of taught. I mean, and... I don't know. I'm not really sure where it began. I guess you could maybe point to social media where you scroll and you got that next video that's entertaining you immediately.
It's that 3 seconds every time. But, you can even go back and think, even throughout Scripture, you can look at David in his life. You look at the patience that he had to outwait Saul, to say, hey, I know I'm going to be king. I can step here. I can stay this entire time because I know God is faithful. He's going to put me on the throne whenever it's time. God's got a plan. I was anointed king. One day down the road, I'll have the position. But you see that patient go away in just a split second when his flesh wants Bathsheba. You see him standing on the rooftop, taking the easy way out. Nobody's at home except him because everybody's gone to war. All of his generals, all of his people, they're gone. And he sees something he wants. He sends his messenger, says, go get it. That's what I want right now. And a man who had every reason to trust God, every reason to say, hey, God's got something way better for me than this. He says, I'll do it my way. I want to do it my way. And we talked about this Sunday. You look at David's sons. You look at Amnon, Absalom, and Solomon. It's like these guys, they all had trouble with women. They all had trouble with lust because they inherited it. And we talked about Sunday. We get so caught up in calling things like generational curses, and we act like it has power over us. But really, they're just cycles that we put in place to begin with. The cycles of, like we're talking about right now, just things that I want, I get right now. Things that I need, I can just get them in an instant. We get these cycles, and life is just hard when I believe that my way is going to work, when I believe that everything that I want should just be at my fingertips. I get frustrated, and I forget that God's way doesn't work like that. It says his ways are higher than ours, his thoughts are higher than ours. And if I don't trust that, I can't even trust him to bless what I've already gotten, what he's already given me. But it's an important thing to turn around and just see that in the moment when you want something, it says sin has pleasure for a short season. It says sin can feel good. Probably one of the worst quotes, but my dad said, if you're sinning and it doesn't feel good, you're doing it wrong. And that's typically how it goes. When you see someone who is caught up in a cycle, it's because they love how it feels. They love how it makes their flesh feel because they crave it. But in the moment, you'll never get enough pleasure for it to be worth the sin and the just the destruction that it invites into your life.
And at 19, I moved out on my own and was hanging with people that didn't go to church, did not love Jesus. And I had already kind of strayed from the Lord before I moved out, because that's the reason I moved out, because, you just want your freedom. You want to do what you want to do. And I moved out at 19 and was kind of just doing my own thing for quite a while. Got married during that time and divorced. And then I remember distinctly, I was back in church when John and I got together. He was not a Christian, but he would go to church with me. And I was back in church, but I wasn't really sold out. I wasn't really working in the church. I wasn't really doing what I was just going to church on Sunday with my mom and daddy because I was back at home by that point. And I remember when John and I got married, we got married in 1991, August. And I got pregnant in December of 1991 with the twins. And I remember distinctly driving down Highway 109, and we lived in Molina at the time. And I remember saying, okay, Lord, I'm done. That's it. I'm about to have children. I'm sold out. I'm going to live right, because you can't raise godly kids without God. So, and John still was not a Christian at the time. And my mama, we'd have prayer every Wednesday night at church, and she put his name on the prayer list, and she put that John would be saved before the twins were born. That was her prayer. And he came to know the Lord alone in the bathroom at work on June the 12th, 1992. And they were born July 25th, 1992. So God answered our prayers, and, but I remember that ride and saying, okay, God, I'm done with the world. I'm on, and that was when I really made that conscious decision that I was done. I mean, in all my childhood, I was good. I always went to church. But when I got 19, I had that little bit of a period and if you could go back and take it back, you would. But it made you who you are, and it made you realize the blessings that are in Because if I had not had that first marriage, I would not be as appreciative as I am of the husband that I have. So you can't second guess things. Just got to roll with it.
I do remember the doctor coming in. He walked in there. He looked at me. He said, he did not have a very good bedside manner, and I respect that because this man has been dealing with this for 2 years now. I remember he walked in there. He came in, stood at the end of the bed, looked at me, and he was, Mr. Blackston, if your condition does not change in the next 2.5 to 3 hours, we're going to vent you, and your life is in the hands of God. And he turned and he walked out. Within a total of 10 seconds, he had come in, told me, if nothing changes, I'm fixing to be vented, and my life is in the hands of God. And he walks out. And that's when I FaceTime Nicole. I was like, look, I need some prayers, and I need music. Music's been huge in my life for so long. Music's my escape. But I told her, I said, I need prayer and I need music. She's like, what's going on? And I told her. And that was the huge turning point in my life, I would say. For years, and this is not the good side of stuff. For years, a lot of my mentality was I got places to go, things to do, and people to piss off. And people sit there and go, really, Steve, you're a pastor? And that's what you thought? A lot of times it was. And I'm not proud of that. Going through what I went through, I came out of it. I got places to go, things to do, and people to love. I was in there, and man, I started getting hit with so many songs. People just started texting me music, sending it to me through FaceTime, text, Messenger, anything. I've still got every single one of them in a playlist on my phone. And there's one song, Raise a Hallelujah. And so I've never heard this song before. And so at this point, and I've been down there about 3 days. They've shipped my computer down there, and I've got my computer sitting there, and the music's coming in, and this one song, Raise a Hallelujah, comes on. And I'm sitting there, and I'm reclined back, and I start hitting the button. I just start easing my way up. Nurse comes in and says, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting out of the bed. She said, you can't get out of the bed. You can't stand up. Your oxygen's too low. I'm like, I can get up. She's like, no, you can't. And she starts laying me back. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm getting out. If you're going to vent me, you're going to vent me because I'm on the floor and out. There, you have no other option. You're not going to take me in this bed. Because I've heard all the horror stories of the doctor coming in, the nurses coming in, the doctor's talking to you this way. The nurse goes ahead and shoots the IV line in there, knocks you out. Next thing you know, you're vented and whatever. So I keep on, I get the bed up. And I get one leg off of the bed, and I got this song, Brandon Lake's Raise a Hallelujah, and I got it cranked up. And it's just playing. And I've already told you I can't sing, okay? At that point, I couldn't sing. I couldn't get any breath to sing worth a flip. And it took me probably an hour to get turned, my legs hanging off the bed, me holding on to the rail on the side, the other hand on the side of the bed, and singing. And the nurse, she's coming in there. She keeps checking on me because she knows I'm not going to stop. And she keeps coming there and she checked my oxygen. She's like, okay, look, you're running 86. You got to sit down. I'm like, I'm sitting. She's like, well, then you got to lay down. I'm like, I'm not laying down. And so I keep going until I physically am finally standing up, and I'm just leaning back, and I got my hands up. I'm praising God. I'm worshiping. And have you ever just been cold? and you go to the dryer and it's done drying your clothes or whatnot, and you reach in there and get a jacket or a shirt or something, and you put it on, and when you put it on, you just get that, just, ooh, and it just warms you to the core. In the middle of all that hit me. I remember holding on to the bed rail, and I'm just singing, and I stink at my singing, but I'm trying, and I keep going. And the lady, the nurse, bless her heart, she keeps coming in, and she's checking it. And she's going, Mr. Blackston, your numbers are going down. You need to sit down. I said, I will in a little bit. And then she'd come back in, and she finally came in one time, and it went up. And I'm just standing there. I still got my hand up. I stand up for about 3 minutes, and I sit down for about 10. And she come back in there, and it had made it up to the 90s. And then I went 91. I got to 92. And she said, that's enough. And I said, I just want to go a little bit more. And she said, how am I supposed to write this down? I said, you know exactly how you're supposed to write it down. She said, nobody's ever going to believe that God came in this room and just raised your oxygen up like that. I said, I don't care. And this was the thing, because they would come in and out. Everybody had their own. I'll never forget the guy that made me the nebulizing stuff, the respiratory guy. He would come in here, and he had on one of these whole hazmat suits, rebreather and everything. Everybody else came in, they had double gloves, the mask, the shields, and everything else. The nurse, at that time I was in there, and I remember she made 2 or 3 marks, and then she put it down on the end of the bed. She took her gloves off. So this was the first time anybody had and she reached up and she grabbed my hand and started praying with me. And I was thinking, man, you go to the hospital, nobody touches you, that'd be all right until you're there. And nobody has touched you. They come in and poke you, talk to you, talk about you as though you're an experiment. And it's nothing against the healthcare professionals. Bless the heart. They have been dealing with this for 2 years now, and they're worn out, burned out. I get it. But to finally feel somebody touch you, not a rubber glove, not a piece of cloth, not a needle, but a hand. And she stood there for probably 2 minutes and prayed with me and just sang with me. And then she left. And I sat down. And I was slap worn out from standing. But the point of it is, I would, and I've told this at the church, I've told people that I'll pray for you. And I'll do that. And I never felt as though prayer did anything. That day, I felt the power of prayer. I know what prayer is now. I know what it's like to receive prayer. I know what it's like to feel God say, I got you. That kind of prayer. Because that's what hit me down there. While I'm there and all that took place, that was nothing more than the power of prayer from so many people. And kids praying for me. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And that was the biggest thing from COVID, that where my life changed, is not my oxygen getting better, not all the other stuff, but being able to feel the power of God working in my life. And being able to fully acknowledge this is answer of prayer.
So I was baptized, saved when I was 10, but I always say I did not start to follow Jesus, like really follow him, until I was 23. And I was in church. I was already married by then. I had 2 kids by that time. And I was reading my Bible one day. I was probably doing a Bible study or something for a ladies group. And I came across the scripture in the Sermon on the Mount that says, if you forgive, you will be forgiven. If you do not forgive, you will not be forgiven. And I had so much unforgiveness in my heart. And I was like, oh, what Jesus is saying here is if I do not forgive blank, blank, and blank, then he's not going to forgive me. And I knew I needed a lot of forgiveness. And so at that point in my walk with him, I know that's when I started to follow him because I didn't want to forgive. And so I started to choose his way over my way. And honestly, Levi, I didn't even know how to forgive. And so here I am, this young woman, this young mom, knowing I need to forgive. I don't even know how to forgive. And so I'm just asking Jesus, Jesus, I don't know how to forgive. My dad did this, this, and this, and my mom did this, this, and this, and so on and so forth. And so what he led me to do is to write down all the unforgiveness I had in my heart. And front and back, it was 3 pages. So every single line, front and back, 3 pages. And it took a while, but I would take 1 or 2 a day, and I would just walk through that, and I would say, Jesus, I forgive my mom for whatever it was I held against her. Jesus, I forgive my dad for, again, whatever. It was very specific. And so that is when I know I started to follow him and choose his ways over my ways. Because my way was not to forgive. My way was to hold on to that because I had every right to in my mind, but that's not the way of Jesus. So yeah, so that was a really long answer to your question, but that is how I came to follow him.
Isn't it incredible how the Word of God can bring conviction like that?
Oh my goodness, yes.
So for me, someone that's been in church my whole life, and honestly, and this sounds terrible, can sometimes get bored with the repetitive reading of the Bible. Mm-hmm. But it's when I really am intentional about opening that book up and saying, okay, Lord, what do you have for me? Mm-hmm. What can I learn from this? Not doing it out of routine,
yes,
but out of desire.
Yes.
And I read a verse that I've read probably 100 times, and there's something that pops out about that.
Yes.
Or convicts about that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
The word is powerful. Sharper than a 2-edged sword, for sure, just as it says.
Now, with unforgiveness, because this is something I got to thinking on while you were sharing that, is, do you think that's something a lot of people have that don't realize that they have it? Like there's unforgiveness throughout their life, but they don't realize that it's unforgiveness.
Mm-hmm. I do have a background in biblical counseling, and from that background, I've learned that a lot of times anger and unforgiveness, they go together. They're hooked. It's like they're hooked. And so, because sometimes we think that we have forgiven someone, like, oh, well, I've forgiven that person. But if we still have anger in our heart or bitterness towards that person, then we really have not forgiven them. And so I feel like a lot of people think they have forgiven or may not even realize there's unforgiveness. But if there's anger or bitterness towards someone, then surely we are holding something against them. Therefore, that is unforgiveness.
And what does that anger or bitterness look like? Does it look like talking bad about them behind their back, gossiping about them, or maybe it's you do everything you can to avoid them, or maybe it's just you think bad thoughts about that person. You put a smile on when you're face to face, but inside you're like, I cannot wait for this person to stop talking.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the opposite of anger?
Joy.
Okay. So I think that's our answer right there. So because people only reveal what's on the inside of us. So let's say you have in some way angered me. It's really not you that's angered me. You've just revealed the anger that's inside of me. And so I need to repent. Like, repentance is always the answer. And so and so then unforgiveness is the same way. It's and Scripture speaks to this over and over again about it's what's inside of us that defiles us. And so we walk around and people just expose those things within us. And so, like, if someone has wronged me, we are called to forgive them as soon as we are wronged, because we're called to live as Christ lived. And that's how he lived. I mean, our sins are as far as the east is from the west, according to him. Love is keeping no record of wrongs. And not that any of us do it perfectly. That's why the gift of repentance is such a beautiful thing. But I do think more of us are walking around with more unforgiveness in our hearts than what we realize.
Middle school, early high school. I was very bitter. I was in a place of comparison, just comparing my situation to everybody else's and immediately seeing how theirs was quote-unquote better. And I just thought, like, I'd be a nobody, I don't think being a nobody exists. I don't think anybody is a nobody, but in my mind, that's what it was like, and that's sad. It's really sad, and that's how I felt, sad. And I didn't want to live this way, and I wanted to change. I wanted to change other people, even if I couldn't, because that's the least I could do to make me feel some type of fulfillment when I went to bed at night. And so I just went to the Creator who ultimately gave me life, and I started learning more about him and kind of digging deeper into why I was disabled. Why did God enforce this on me? My digging led me to understand that it wasn't God, it was the world. God does not inflict suffering, but he gives it purpose, right? So once I understood that, it changed everything. And I fell in love with the Bible. I fell in love with Christianity. And after that, it was, my life changed for sure. So it was completely different from that point on.
Do you have a verse or a passage of scripture that you live by that's like your kind of life motto that's kind of help you get through some tough times?
Ecclesiastes 3:11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Yet he has put eternity in a man's heart so that he cannot know what God has done from the beginning to the end. And I think about that verse a lot. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has put eternity in a man's heart so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. You'll never be able to know what God was doing from the beginning to the end. Because we view time as it is. We only see a fraction. Because we're living in it, right? We are in the pool of time. And God is able to see everything because he's outside of that pool. He's the one who created the pool anyway. So he's able to look outside and see where it ends, where things begin, where things stop, where forks in the road happen. Like, he's able to see all of this, we're not. And there's comfort in that. And I found comfort in that verse, largely.
That's encouraging. So, backing up a little bit, did you feel when you were in that tough spot in your life, you said like middle going into high school, did you feel like you lacked purpose? Like you had no purpose in life? Like you weren't ever going to amount to anything or be anything because you're in this wheelchair and you can't walk and you can't pick stuff up and you can't give somebody a high five.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had no purpose?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You had the nail on the head there. So, I mean, it's... I mean, it's a pretty normal thought for somebody in my position. A lot of other people I've talked to who also have had SMA, they'll tell you the same thing. So, for my situation, that was pretty normal. And it was definitely a difficult type of normal.
What is your purpose now, Jamie? What do you feel like God has showed you that He wants you to do with your life?
Just serve people. That's ultimately what everything I do revolves around, is serving other people. Not in a way where it's like people pleasing, but in a way as in, this is what God has told me to do for you, so I'm going to do it. And that's going to look differently. You know, I can serve people in different ways. And I'm excited about that. But that's why I'm here on this earth, is to serve people. And even Jesus said the same thing, right? The Son of Man has not come to be served, but to serve. So it's like, oh, even Jesus came to serve. So what am I supposed to be here for? The same thing. Serve. So go serve, Jamie. Quit moping. Quit crying. You'll feel better once you serve someone. So I think that's why I'm here, ultimately.
I'll be honest with you. In my business, I use very little that I ever learned in college. I really don't. And as I hire people, the college degree is not that important to me. I'm more looking for work ethic, even the ability to solve problem solving. Even street smarts, that kind of stuff. So for me, I look back on college was, 4 years of me learning how to live with other people and how to mature. I matured, obviously, and I had structure in my life that had deadlines. But I really don't look back at college and think, oh my goodness, I learned so much, I did, the book smarts thing is just, I don't know that that's important to me as it is to other people. Now, hey, if I was going to become a school teacher or, a scientist or someone like that, then, absolutely. But we're in the building supply business, so.
You don't particularly need that. No. Someone told me one time that, because, people want to go to this college or that college or their dream school or whatever. And somebody told me once, a company is not going to, the only two places they care about are like Princeton or Yale or Ivy League schools. That it doesn't matter if that says University of Georgia or Georgia Military College, Southern Crescent Technical College. They're not looking for that when they hire. They're looking for the most qualified candidate. And that's kind of what you're talking about is you look past that because so many people can have the degree but not be street smart or not have common sense or not be able to critically think for themselves, But yeah, what did you study in college?
I majored in marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I wanted to be a State Farm agent. Yeah. And so I had this really good friend of mine growing up. His name was Rhett Butler. His dad, Bobby Butler, was our State Farm agent in Barnesville. And I made some observations. When I would go over to Rhett's house, I noticed that Rhett lived in a 2-story house with a swimming pool. And I lived in a 1-story ranch house with a cemetery in our backyard. And that's true. Rhett's dad, he drove a Mercedes. And my dad drove a pickup truck without air conditioning. And Rhett's dad, he played golf at least 3 times a week. And my dad did not even own a set of golf clubs. So as I grew up working at Bankston Lumber in the summers. I would even walk to Bankston Lumber from school and work there from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and then ride home with my dad. I would stock shelves, sweep the floor, things like that. So basically, I was very honest with my dad when I was in college that I would rather be a State Farm agent than come back into the family business. And so he agreed. He actually said, "You will probably make more money. You will have less stress. You will be happier. You won't have a fleet of trucks you have to maintain. You will have a lot less employees. You won't have accounts receivables because State Farm collects that from the home office." And he actually encouraged me to go that direction. So coming out of college, I interviewed with State Farm, and I got a job as a claim adjuster, a homeowner claim adjuster. And to become an agent, you really had to start either as an underwriter or a claims adjuster. And you could fast track and become an agent back then. This was the early 90s. So you could probably become an agent in 3 to 4 years, by taking classes. And so there were a group of us, maybe 9 or 10 of us, that were kind of on that fast track to becoming an agent. And they walked in the room one day, Levi, and they said, "Guys, we've got some bad news for you." And this was back in 1992. And they said, "We're now under affirmative action here in the state of Georgia." And if you think about it, back in 1992, probably just about every State Farm agent in Georgia was a white male. And they said, "Guys, as our white male agents, either retire, leave, or whatever, we're going to have to replace those agents with anyone but you, whether it be white female, black male, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, but we've got to get this ratio that we've got to hit." So I remember I was devastated, kind of, because I asked how much longer, how long is it going to take for you to hit these ratios so that the next white male agent would be named? And they said at least 10 years. And I have friends that were in that group with me today that they waited it out, and they got their agencies, and they're State Farm agents today. And I think there were 2 or 3 of us out of that group that left. But I remember calling my dad, and I said, "Hey, this has just happened. And, Bankston Lumber's, our family business. And if I was ever going to come back and give it a shot and a try, I think, now would be the time. And, and that way, if I don't like it, maybe State Farm takes me back. Maybe Allstate will hire me I can get back into insurance." But, and this is before cell phones. So he says, "How much are you making?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm up to about $33,000 a year, Dad." And he says, "I'll call you back tonight." So he called me back that night, and he said, "I can only offer you probably $25,000. And he said, "That's probably the most." So I think my wife was making $16,000 at the time. We were living up in northern Henry County. And so we went from a dual income of about $48,000 or so down to a one income of $25,000. Moved into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house and in Barnesville, and went to work for my dad. And everyone said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be an outside salesman." And they said, "Well, what is that?" We don't know what that is. Because back then, all the contractors and customers would actually bring their plans to the store, have a cup of coffee, and go over the plans with the inside salespeople, that worked on the counter. And I said, well, I'm going to go around. I'm going to check the building permits, because you had to buy a permit, to build a house. So, it gave me a roadmap of who I needed to see, where I needed to go. And so I'd fill my pockets full of quarters every morning, and I knew where every payphone was within a 5-county area. And I basically covered a 5-county area where I would check the permits. I would go to the job sites. I would meet the contractors who were obviously buying from some other building supply. And I guess after I went by there so many times, maybe they felt sorry for me and they started placing orders with me or whatever. But they couldn't believe I was coming out to their job site, because they were like, my salesman never does that. I always have to go to the store. And so anyway, I built relationships with them. And lo and behold, after the first year, I had sold as much money as my dad had sold in the whole business the previous year. So I had doubled my dad's sales in 1 year. And 3 years later, he decided to give me a raise. I'm not kidding.
I'll just say it this way. I started back, you can't look at me now and tell, but years ago, I used to love to, I got to running, and I would run 3 miles a day. And I remember when I started running, I hated running. I mean, I was bored to death. I'm like, why do anybody want to do this? This is stupid. Just get on the road and just run, unless somebody's chasing me, I'm not running. And I remember there was a buddy of mine that he would run these big marathons, and he'd run like 5 to 10 miles a day. And I'm sitting here just struggling to get to a mile a day. And I asked him one time, I said, man, how can you run that far and not get bored to death? And he said, well, you're focusing on the wrong thing. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're focusing on the mile or the 3 mile. He said, I run pole to pole. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He said, so if I'm on the road, there's a light pole there. He said, I look for the first light pole. And when I get to that light pole, I look for the next one and the next one, so on and so forth. And so he said, before you realize it, you've completed your mile or your 3 miles or whatever it is you're running. Life is a lot like that, especially when you're trying to break addictions. There's no, it's great to say, well, hey, I want to be sober a year from now. Well, man, let's be sober tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, let's be sober the next day, pole to pole. There's nothing wrong with having a long-term vision, but you got to have some short-term goals to get you to that vision. And so I encourage people. There's probably people that'll hear this that maybe have talked to me at one point or another, and they've heard this pole to pole till they're sick of it. But it is so true. If you can just take it pole to pole, we hear in the church world day to day. Day, one day at a time, Lord, one day at a time. That's fine. But I use it as pole to pole. It helped me in getting me motivated to run. And I've never forgot that principle. And there's so many ways that we can use that, not just running, but in trying to break addictions as well.
That's the whole concept too, with the 1% better every day.
That's right. That's exactly right.
1% better.
That's right. Yeah.
So you sit down with them and kind of have that conversation. And so what do you think is the biggest thing with addiction? You think, or I guess that needs to change. Is it a mindset change that they need to change their mind and fall into complete and utter repentance of what they're in?
I do. I think it is a complete mindset. It's been proven that you hear people that are addicts and they go to these programs, the rehab programs, and they'll go to a 30-day one or a 6-month one or whatever. And what you'll see is a cycle. They get clean, they get detox, but then they go right back through the system again. And it's been proven that most rehabs. Now listen, the Lord. I never did go to a rehab. The Lord helped me, but I had to do my part too. The Lord delivered me, and I give Him all the glory for that. But I had to do my part too. And the day that we're in now, it's proven that if you go to a rehab that's less than a year, a lot of times people come right back and they'll fall right back because physically you're detoxed. Physically, you feel fine, but it takes a year for they call it brain fog, but it takes a year for your brain fog to go away. So your mind is still not operating in the way that it's acting in that addictive fog. And so it makes you feel like that you just got to have that drink, or you've got to have that drug, or you've got to have that tobacco or cigarette, whatever it is. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm an addict now. It's just I'm an addict of sweet tea. If you go in my truck, I've got a sweet tea in there right now, you know? So an addict is an addict. Now, fortunately, sweet tea, it may get my health in trouble, but it won't get me in trouble with the law or my family or anything. But you have to just, break down and find out what makes you think you have to drink, or what makes you think you have to do drugs. Where we fall victim is a lot of times, especially with drugs, is that when you get to that first high, whatever drug that is, when you get to that very first high, it's almost impossible for you to get to that high again. And so your body becomes so dependent because they're trying to get to that one, if we call it 1% better, whatever, you're trying to get back up to that level, and it's almost impossible to do. And so your body, our bodies are, man, they're amazing creation. And our body's trying to get us to there, or mentally trying to get there. And you feel like that you've got to have, all right, well, one pill didn't work this time, so I'm gonna have to take 2. Now I'm gonna have to take 3, and before you know it, man, you're completely addicted. And a lot of people do it innocently, whether it's pain pills, or maybe they've had a surgery, or they've had an injury. So, I tell people this, I have a heart for people that are addicts. And a lot of people don't. They just turn their back on them, like, you need to make better decisions. But I've used this comment, man. I've used this in my own life. I never woke up a day in my life and said, you know what, I want to become an alcoholic. That sounds fun. There's never a drug addict that I've ever met that woke up one morning and said, I want to be an addict. Now, shame on me for ever taking the first drink. Shame on them for ever taking the first whatever. But man, think about people that have, injuries, and they innocently go to a doctor and they get a pain med or what have you. And then before they know it, they're hooked. So not all addicts are bad people, man. They just made bad decisions. It breaks my heart to see anyone that's hooked on anything, because I know there's such a better life out there for them.
With high schoolers and drinking, because that's culturally, it's becoming more and more popular.
Absolutely.
And I was homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't involved in circles like that. I've been blessed with a great group of friends. A majority of most, like Ben Richardson.
Yeah.
Ben has been one of my best friends my whole life from Mountain Gap. But just a great friend group, and so I was never exposed to anything like that, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But for a lot of these kids that are exposed to this, why do you think that they take that first sip, or they do that, hit that first joint, or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Why is it peer pressure, or?
Yeah, I think majority is peer pressure to fit in. That we live in such a society now, and people can blame social media, they can blame all that, and there's a lot to blame there. But man, we couldn't even spell social media when I was coming up in high school. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have any of that stuff, but you still had peer pressure. And I did it just to fit in. I was trying to be, I was new to the baseball team, and I'm going to hang out with seniors. I'm a lowly freshman. I'm going to hang out with seniors, So it was my way of fitting in, and we still do that today. It's a lot of it is peer pressure. It's the thing to do. It's the fun thing to do. And we make decisions, then we don't realize the consequences. Because like I just said, nobody ever took a first drink with a desire of becoming an addict. My mama used to tell me years ago, and I wish I'd have listened to her. I wish I'd listened to her a whole lot more than I did. She said, son, if you never take the first drink, you'll never become an alcoholic. If you never, smoke the first cigarette, you'll never, be hooked on that. And there's so much truth to that. It's hard to get hooked on something if you never try it. And, to tell kids nowadays, that's why I commend your age group and people that can walk around and say, I've never drank, or I've never done this, I've never done that, because there is so much pressure on y'all. There's a ton of pressure, undeserved, but there's a ton of pressure on y'all to do things that as we say in the church world, that the world does. And man, we're called to be different. I wished there's a lot of me that wished I would have done that, but then at the same time, I've got a lot of regrets in my life before Christ and after, but it's brought me where I'm at now, and I'm able to use my story to help other people. So it was, looking back now, it was worth it. But man, I could have, all of the heartache and the hurt and that I could have prevented for myself, for my family, and my friends if I'd have never just taken that first drink.
And I think we get contentment and comfort confused. Tommy Tenney once says that we have become the cult of the comfortable. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. We are the cult of the comfortable. We want to be comfortable in our nice padded seats, in our nice couches, in our air-conditioned and heated houses. We want to be comfortable. And I think we mess those up a little bit. I don't think that we understand definitely what contentment is, being content in what we have in this life, what we do in this life, where we are in this life, the beauty of this life, the relationships. Are we content even in those in comparison to comfort? So after all that deal, went to church, man, I got saved. The wife and I ended up getting baptized a little while later. It was a beautiful thing at the same church that I was saved at. And it was all because this guy bartered with me to go to church. And it was a beautiful thing. And I still talk about that. And I'll always tell that story because that story of him being willing to put himself out and make this deal with me. He didn't want to go to the drag races. He wanted to work on the farm. But he took that step in faithfulness and said, yeah, I'll go. You're going to go to church with me. It's in that discovery, watching him, watching people of faith move in the church, move through life. That's where we really get to see what contentment really looks like. You ever thought about that? Look at the people that you look up to of faith in your life. Do you see contentment? Man, how'd they get it? Right? We want to know. Everybody wants to know how we get it. Well, you get it by walking in this faithful journey with Jesus. You get it in the midst of learning how to navigate life according to his word and his will. When I'm walking with him, contentment kind of is a byproduct of being in a rightful relationship. And when I walk with him and I talk with him and I love him and I praise him and I worship him and I do all of those things, nothing makes me happier. Nothing makes me more content. You can't out praise God. You can't out worship God. I mean, think about it. It's so beautiful to me that we are the ones that struggle in all of our brokenness and all of the brokenness of the world that we live in and all of the difficulty and struggle. And yet we still find rest. We still find relief from this world in his presence. We still find this contentment that can only be found in him. So contentment, when we look at it, I think it's really, we're seeing two things. For some people, they feel contentment is comfort. I don't think comfort and contentment are the same. And I'm content in my heart knowing who is in charge of my life. I'm content with what comes next, even when I don't know what that is, because of who I belong to. And I think that's something that's important. I don't think there is contentment without faith. I think there's comfort. I think there's lots of comfort. But this life can be totally and utterly consuming. And we give ourselves over to that a lot of times. We're going to give it all I got. How many times have you said that? I'm going to give it all I got. How many times have you been on the field playing ball or doing something and I'm going to give it all I got? we give ourselves away to such a degree to the comforts and the things that get us recognized. Oftentimes more so to the faithfulness and the contentment that is to be had in that faithfulness. That's a constant tension that we walk, right? I want to do this. God wants me to do this. We really want to meet in the middle. That's really what we want. We want God to meet us in the middle.
Compromise.
Yeah, we want compromise. But we don't serve a compromising God. You ever thought about that? He can't compromise his character. He can't compromise who he is. Isaiah 55, my ways are higher than your ways, just as the heavens are higher than earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts higher than yours, or my thoughts higher than your thoughts. I mean, we want God to compromise with us. Lord, just meet me in the middle. But why? It's not for contentment. What's it for? It's for comfort. God, meet me in the middle. It'll be more comfortable for me. So that's part of the struggle for what I see in this life. I see that people are really caught between the tension of comfort and contentment. And I'm just like you, man. There's sometimes I'm looking, man, I'm looking at this house, man, I'd love to have that house. Or I'm looking at, big apartment buildings and things like that. But I need to be content in this moment with what God's got me doing right now, right here. Now, I'm not saying don't work. I think that's important. I think we need to work, but I can't outwork God. I mean, so he's doing the heavy lifting. I just want to be obedient and submissive and show up. God, keep doing the heavy lifting because it's too heavy for me. Right? He said, take my yoke upon you. Take my yoke upon you. But the burden's light. Man knows Lord knows I can't carry what he's carrying.
Robbie's come to Jesus was very slow and gradual. He's very much into music, and him and Chelsea started singing. I noticed that whenever we would get in the car and go somewhere, they would turn it on Christian music, and him and Chelsea would sing together. Well, then it got to where I would notice that if I ever got into his truck to go somewhere with him, that it was no longer on a country station or anything. It was on a Christian station. And so that let me know that he's listening to Christian music even when he doesn't have to, And so he started listening to Christian music and started singing with Chelsea. And like when Mama died, I think it just opened up the reality that death is real. People you love, they do die, and there is an eternity that you need to come to grips with and realize that we're not promised tomorrow. And he realized that he needed something different. He needed the Lord, and so he started out going to. I remember the first day he got up and he got dressed. It was a Sunday, and I was like, wonder where he's going so early, because he hadn't told me he was going to church. And I remember thinking, what is he doing? Because Robbie will tell you, he's a man of few words. Sometimes you just got to watch him and see what he's going to do. And he said, of course, church is right across the street, and so he didn't have far to go. And I noticed he went to church. And I was like, okay. Well, then I was on edge for like weeks. You're like, okay, he went last week without me asking him. So the next Sunday, he gets up and he starts getting dressed again. And I was like, is he going back? And so sure enough, he went to church. And it was like that. And I remember I would think every Saturday I'd be like, is he going to go to church tomorrow? I didn't want to ask him. That's the funny thing about it. The whole time that we were married, the Lord did not really release me to preach to Robbie or to say anything about, him or only on a few occasions did I actually get to talk to him. I remember there was one time when I was asking him about tithing because he was working and I was not. And I said, I feel like we need to tithe. And he said, well, you do what you need to do. You know, it wasn't a yes and it wasn't a no. And so, anyways, but so Robbie's, he hasn't been a hard person. He was just distant from the Lord. And so when he started going to church every Sunday, I was still like, because like I said, he's a man of few words. So every Saturday I'm like, is he going to church? Do I ask him, is he going to church? Maybe not. You know, I'll just wait and see. So on Sunday mornings, I'm like holding my breath, waiting to see if he's going to get up and go to church. And now to this day, he beats me to church. He's there before I am. So, but I think music had a lot to do with it. I think seeing my mom go through what she went through had a lot to do with it. And a lot of prayers. There was a lot of prayers. I have a prayer journal now where I taught the girls' class, and Chelsea wrote every week in our prayer journal, salvation for my daddy. And I have that. And that was when she was young, 10, 11, 12 years old. She wrote in it every single Wednesday night, salvation for my daddy. And so the Lord answered prayers.
When I was 9, I was in an auto accident with family on our way to a family reunion in Alabama. And I was riding with aunt and uncle and cousin, and then my mother's aunt and uncle. So my Uncle Ed, my Aunt Cassie, my Uncle Tony, my Aunt Kay, and Evan, my cousin. And we were all injured in one way or another. Head whiplash, cuts on the head. I don't even know, because I spent 15 days in a coma after that. My parents were told that if I made it 24 hours, that I'd probably be in a vegetative state the rest of my life. So as a 9-year-old, of course, I came home a month later. And that summer, I don't remember that summer. So I had to learn to walk, talk, add, write. Anything I had ever known, I had to sort of get it back under my belt. And I went with my regular 4th grade class. I should have been kept back probably in the 3rd grade, but I went on with my 4th grade. And I made it. And so that was at 9. And then one Sunday morning, so I still don't remember. I remember going to 4th grade. I don't remember that summer getting to the 4th grade or anything.
So it kind of gave you some memory issues there, the whole accident. That was kind of one of the side effects of it once you came out of the coma.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember very little of the first 9 years of my life today. Okay.
And you believe that's because of
the accident.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months, the last 2 years have been very difficult in my ministry. I'll go back to the accident in a minute. But the last 2 years have been very difficult in my ministry. I've had some anxiety issues. I've had concentration issues. I've had I spent a year, a couple of years ago, and basically slept my life away almost. I would go to work, but I would go to lunch planning to go home, go somewhere, but then I would end up at home, set my alarm for 1 o'clock and sleep till 1. Whatever time I got home, 12:10, 12:15, I'd sleep till 1 o'clock, get up and go back to church, go do my job. Then I'd go home and I'd go to sleep. Well, that's not normal. And I was having other issues. So I got on some one thing led to another, and I got on some medicine that's helped all that. And it's much better. But it turns out that all that stems from that accident, because I can't tell you when, but sometime in this last year, I was walking my son's dogs. My wife and I were on a walk, and I hit the lip in the sidewalk where it was raised up, tripped, hit my eye. My eye turned black, and it was terrible. went to the emergency room, and the doctor, after a while, after doing some tests and X-rays, came back to me. He said, "Well, we were afraid you might have some broken bones around your eye because it did not look good, and but you don't have any of those. That's the good news. The bad news is you've had a stroke, and so I have stickers on everybody's refrigerator in my family that says FAST. Your grandmother probably has one, but that stands for face, arm, speech, time. That's the things you look at when somebody's had a stroke. Their face sags, their speech slurs, your arm goes numb, and then you want to do something as fast as you can to get it taken care of. So FAST. I know the signs of a stroke, and I had not had any. Well, from there, I said, well, if I've had a stroke, I need to go to a neurologist because that's who treats you. And I learned all this from being, taking care of people in all kind of situations over the last 25 years. And so I have a friend who's a neurologist in Lawrenceville. I made an appointment. My wife and I went up there and explained to him what all's been happening. He looked at the CD that I took of the pictures of my brain, and when he showed it to me, and when he told me what was going on, it sort of threw me into shock. I wasn't myself for a little while because he looked at it and he said, "Remind me which side that accident was on. Where was your damage?" I said, "It was right here on the right side." He said, "Okay, where this doctor said it was a stroke. If this was a stroke as big as it is, you'd be curled up in a bed somewhere dying." He said, "This is damage from when you were a kid and when you had that accident." So, and then he showed it to me. When you look at your brain through CT scans or whatever they take, it should be white. Good tissue, good brain tissue is white. This side was all white, and this side was mostly black, which meant that for most of my life, my left side has compensated for the 30% of my brain that doesn't work from that accident.
So anyway, very early on, we began to sleep together, and I got pregnant right off the bat. And that got serious real fast. Mm-hmm. That's kind of stopped us dead in our tracks. And what was it your dad had always told you?
He had always said, if he discovered that I was, I was introduced to pornography at a young age.
And alcohol.
And so I can remember him telling me several times, don't you get some little girl in trouble. Don't you get some little girl in trouble. Well, I got some little girl in trouble. So that's what I could hear in my head.
And we came from two totally different backgrounds on that aspect, because growing up in Silvertown with all the guys, of course they got into trouble, doing things that kids will do. Whereas he was the youngest of the family. Mm-hmm. That's really how you got introduced to pornography, wasn't it? Or was it, or through some
I was boys? The youngest, and so, I'll just say probably there was not enough attention placed on making sure I was where I was supposed to be and doing what I was supposed to do.
And here I was
not blaming anybody.
Right, on the opposite end, I was trying to do everything right because I didn't like getting in trouble. Was your typical firstborn. You probably know how that feels. But I can remember also hearing things as I got older, of people we get divorced or whatever. We all go through as a kids when we hear our parents argue or something, we're so afraid, are they fixing a divorce? You go through all that. And most of the time, what I heard adults say in conversation was, well, they got married awfully young and they didn't sow their wild oats. That's what I heard all the time, even at church. And so I grew up then thinking that that was something I had to do in order to have a happy life. Whereas it had been totally different for him, that he had to do that to fit into with his crowd and to be a normal person. So it came to a halt real quick, though.
Yeah.
Both of us were very pro-life, would have never, ever, ever considered an abortion. But when you're living in that kind of state and you've done something very wrong and it's fixing to affect your whole family.
Yeah.
It's fixing to affect your whole life.
Disappointment to
Yes.
all of your family.
And we're both very big people pleasers. So abortion was mentioned in a conversation, and we have discovered since what went wrong. Satan used that. I thought then that's what he wanted me to do, and he thought it was what I wanted to do. Neither one of us wanted to, but we thought the other one did. And so then the decision was made to have the abortion. And here again, I think all of that was just a lot of miscommunication on our part that Satan made sure. And we were already at a state in our relationship we didn't want to lose each other. Of course, then I find out years later with couples who have had an abortion, only 1 in 4 ever make it a month, for even a month or 2 later down the road. And most of them never get married. So the fact that we stayed together and have been married now for almost 44 years is an absolute miracle. It's just God.
What was that call to your parents like when you told them that y'all were pregnant?
We didn't tell anybody at the time. We did not tell them. We had a couple of friends that knew. That was it. We did not tell anybody.
We didn't tell them.
It was a big secret. Some people probably found out, I'm sure, through the grapevine, because we're both in fraternities and sororities and people talk, But it never was like out as far as I know. But our parents had no idea. It wasn't until years later when I went through a lot of emotional and spiritual healing because of it that we finally told all our parents. And their answers then kind of shocked me because I don't want to get too far ahead, but we had prayed, especially when we told both sets, that the Holy Spirit would be a sponge to their heart to be able to take it. And if they wanted to be angry with us, it was okay. We'd finally gotten to that point in healing where it didn't matter. It was okay because they should have been. It was okay. We'd done something terrible. And the first thing that came out of my parents' mouths were, Karen, honey, you could have died from that. They were worried about me. They weren't even concerned that I was pregnant, which just blew my mind. But by that time, too, or maybe a little after, we realized that we were afraid of things like disappointing our parents, getting kicked out of school by them, having it hard because he only had, 1 quarter left to graduate. I had another year and a quarter to graduate. And so we thought it was going to be the end of our lives, and lives were going to be hard, and we weren't going to have any money, and we don't have a place to live. And, just all these things just kind of come crashing in at one time. And you just get scared to death, really. That is one of Satan's greatest weapons, is fear. Because that's the only thing that drove us to that. Because it's not something we believed in and would have never considered it until it happens and you're afraid and think you're going to be alone.
Do you think that brought y'all closer together?
It did. There have been things we've had to work through, though.
Yeah.
Because not that we blamed each other, but there's this. Well, first of all, having sex before marriage, and this is what we've told our kids, it causes there to be a distrust between the two. We don't care if you're engaged and about to get married. If you're not able to wait, there's something there that says, well, if you couldn't control yourself this time, can you control yourself next time? With somebody else or whatever. So there's a lot of distrust that we had to overcome, but the Lord helped us in doing that.
What do you mean by that? Like, you mean
Well, like
cheating
if
down the
you
road or
right, if you don't have the discipline and self-discipline and ability not to go ahead and have sex, then your partner really cannot trust you to have the self-discipline for other things. So that's where it gets. Mm-hmm. And most married people that we know that happened before they got married, they've all kind of had to work through that just a little bit, because it does set a pace and sets a precedence in your relationship.
About who had abortion?
No, we're talking about who just had premarital sex. Yes. So, but we've not met any other couple that's still together that's gone through an abortion, have we? I don't think we've met anybody.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. And I did post-abortion counseling for quite a while, about 4 years. And there was not one person in my groups and within those 4 years that was married to the man from the abortion experience. So we're an odd
unusual
couple and unusual, but it's just been God.
I wanted to ask, how did that affect you mentally?
Well, any grief experience of something you lose, and for a long time I didn't like to call it grief because that's what it is. But when you have an abortion, you made the decision, it just makes you feel guiltier. It's like, yeah, but my grief is not, I shouldn't get by with just grief for somebody that like had a baby to die. When you chose, we did that. It was our fault. So you almost feel like the grieving experience is something you should have worse than anybody else. And but anytime you lose something, and even though we made that choice and decision, we still lost something. You go through a period of denial. That's usually the first step of grief, where you just deny, this can't be real, this can't be real. And we were there for quite a while. When we got married, which was actually about a year later, when we got married, though, I just had really, it was one thing to me, okay, we sowed the wild oats. Now I'm going to do real life like real, like Mom and Daddy did and how it should be. And it was really kind of interesting because Johnny was still drinking, playing softball. Most of our dating was done on a softball field, that or the library. But he came home one day from work at lunch, and it was through the summer, so I had not started my school year yet. And he just looked at me. Well, first, I better back up. I had a dream that we were laying in bed watching TV, and the devil stood at the foot of my bed and said, I'm going to take him from you. And you know how you have those dreams where you can't really hardly say anything? And I was just trying to get it out, and I finally says, you can't have him. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And the dream was over. 2 weeks later, he comes home from work and says, honey, we got to have a talk. Something's got to give. And I'm thinking, oh dear, we've been married for 6 weeks. This can't be this bad. That's what I'm thinking. And he said, I can't live like this anymore. He said, we have friends on the weekend and we have friends on Sunday and Wednesday night that are different. And he said, I can't ride the fence anymore. I said, well, what do you want to do? He says, I want to sell out to Jesus 100%. And he says that's when he got saved. He had walked the aisle and had done all that,
but
yeah.
that was not a real decision.
But that was an answer to prayer for me because I didn't want to live the lifestyle we had still carried on from college. And so it all changed right there overnight. I mean, I've never seen anybody, and we've had friends in AA and stuff like that. And he just quit cold turkey, everything. It was a complete turnaround. And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because that's made a
nothing but
huge
God.
difference in our life. Huge. But after that, then I had to go through, because we were still in denial, I think, at that point in time. But when I got pregnant with Tyler, I was so afraid God was going to punish me for what I'd done and cause me to have something wrong with my baby. There was a little girl at school who was born without any oil glands. And so she looked blistered and peeled all the time. It was just so sad. And I would see her and I'd think, Lord, please don't punish me that way, and not realizing God does not operate like that. But I was still so afraid and still so convicted and guilty for what I had done. We had then Tori later, 2 years later, and we moved to LaGrange. And then we had Tatum. And when we had Tatum, that's when I could not hold it in any longer. And I was going to a ladies' Bible study, and it was just digging up a lot of things on the inside, things like my fear of rejection, which is here again the basis of why we had the abortion to begin with. That was at the root of most everything for me. And these two girls from the Bible study really walked through it with me for a long time, but I just completely fell apart. I would cry uncontrollably. I was suicidal at one time, even to the point of they had all gone to bed, the kids and Johnny, and I'm sitting in the living room just hating on myself with pills in my hand to take. And that night I literally heard voices. And I don't mean that like out in the room, but it's like I had this tightness in my chest, and I could just hear the devil whispering in my ear, go ahead, do it. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. And if they all knew what you did, they'd hate you. And all of a sudden, when that tightness in my chest started, it's like I could hear that still small voice say, you can't do it because I love you. It's not your choice. You can't do it because I love you. I love you. And that's what changed my life right there.
My mom got diagnosed with cancer in, 2014. And I remember going with her to her first oncologist appointment, and he was the local he was the guy that knew everything about what type of cancer we thought she had in Atlanta. And I remember sitting across the table from him and him telling her, it doesn't matter what you eat whatever you want. And I remember thinking, well, that's odd. I mean, it has to have something, it may not have caused it, but it has to help somewhat with what you eat. And so I remember that being kind of a pause moment of like, I don't know if I think all that's true. I mean, we don't have to go on the far end of the spectrum of, going nuts with it, but certainly diet can support this. What she was fixing to go through with her treatments. The other thing was I got very, very sick from a tick bite in 2015, and developed something called ehrlichiosis, and ended up losing a baby from being sick. We live in middle Georgia. We live on a farm. I was out in the woods putting up fence posts, and evidently had gotten a tick bite and was pregnant and got very sick from it. And I lost the baby. The baby got the bacteria as well. Ended up losing the baby, having to deliver it. And then I was just sick for about 2 years after that. I didn't feel right. I developed stomach ulcer. I had some cardiac issues where my heart rate was getting crazy. I'm a runner. I was running 7 miles without any issue before that. And then I couldn't run across the yard afterwards. And so went through, I was diagnosing myself on what I thought was an issue and went through kind of the normal channels and had a tremendous amount of testing done. And at the end of the day, they're like, it's just stress. So I'm like, that's code for, we don't know what's wrong with you. And I get it. I mean, nothing was popping up other than, my heart rate was getting out of control at times. And so, but I wasn't feeling panicky. I wasn't feeling anxious. I mean, I was sad. I was mourning the loss of that child, but I knew it was something different. And so I just kind of went down a more holistic treatment path because I was really at my rope's end of what's going to get me better. And within about 2 months, everything went away. And so for me, it was, I think, recognizing that as much as we know, there's a lot that we don't know. And realizing that some of kind of more natural supplements have been around for thousands of years. And it was in a call to me of like, I know very little about it at all. And so again, that was like another kind of link in the chain, what I knew was a kind of a bad recommendation to my mom on top of, for myself, realizing it was alternative treatments that got me out of the ditch. And then I think COVID really opened my eyes a lot to the, how do I word this? Kind of the intermingling between politics, money, and medicine. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by nature, and I try to tend to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But I think when you saw people from government positions shoving stuff down people's throats, what lost me was the shoving the vaccine on the kids. Like, they were not getting sick. They were not dying from this. And it became very obvious that there was a talking point and a mantra that was going to be followed no matter what the science was, no matter what anybody else was coming forward and saying, hey, this seems to be working. And they shut all those people down. It really made me step back and think, oh my gosh, like, these people in these institutions who we would have looked to as our go-to for recommendations, they are being bought off and they are compromised in terms of being truth tellers. And even if I knew I probably would have a different worldview than them, even if I knew I probably would have voted different than them, I thought there was enough of a love for science where there was some desire to seek truth and give good and sound recommendations. But to me, in COVID, it just really kind of pulled the mask off. This is really about control and power and money. And it really was a time for me where I kind of questioned, well, where do I get my information? Do you still trust the CDC? Do you still trust NIH studies? I mean, this is where we would go. And so I just thought, I need to do my own research. And so I went and studied and did some different research about different places that would offer kind of more holistic treatment and found some programs that I liked online and finished that certification just to try and to realize, like, I've got to get this information myself from somewhere else. And patients knew that too. I mean, patients were coming into the room and telling me about all these supplements they were taking and asking me what my opinion was on different things. And I didn't know. I mean, I went to Emory. I graduated, from Emory. I was, top of my class there, and I knew what I knew, but we weren't taught this stuff. And none of the other doctors that I was eating lunch with, and I would ask them about, what do you think about functional medicine? Their answer to me was, what is that? And so we're just not trained in these more holistic ways. And so I just knew I had to break out of the mold and just go get that education on my own, because I didn't get it. And I knew it wasn't coming down the tubes through the typical channels that we got information. So those were kind of the different links in the chain that kind of led me there.
Do you think modern medicine is dangerous?
It can be. It's like any medicine is like a sharp kitchen knife. Used in the right way, it does a lot of good, and used in a bad way, it can hurt people. So certainly it can be, but it gave my mom 10 and a half years with us that I'm certain she wouldn't have had she not gone through that. So I'm not a purist on either end of the spectrum. There's absolutely a time and a place for conventional medicine, and it's needed, certainly in acute situations. But I think there's also a time and place for more holistic lifestyle treatments, supplements, nutritional supplements, food as medicine for those chronic diseases. That's why when someone starts taking one pill, they end up on 4, 5, 6, because they combat the side effects of that one. So there's a role for both disciplines, conventional medicine and functional medicine.
So what was that, I guess, that true come to Jesus moment for you where you really fully surrendered your life?
Thomaston, the Church of God, it's now called City of Refuge. It's up from the Walmart on the right. It was a Sunday night. I'm sitting there, and the preacher gives an altar call, and I don't know if it was a dream or vision, but it happened to me. I got my head bent what the preacher used to say, and Billy doesn't do it, but our pastor, but they used to say, okay, everybody bow your head, close your eyes, nobody looking around. And I did that, and it was about 3 years after that accident. I was kind of drinking and doing a lot of stuff. I did have a couple of boys that I was real close to that, got one got actually shot and died the night I was with him. But earlier that night, he asked me about the Lord, and we were drinking, and I guess because I was raised right, I didn't really feel like talking about God while I was doing wrong. So I said, man, are we going to drink? We're going to talk about the Lord. Later that night, there was an accident. Another boy playing with a gun shot him, and it killed him. A few weeks later, I had another friend that we shooting pool, drinking, just getting wasted really. And out of the blue, he said, "Hey man, my aunt took me to church." He's like, "Ain't your parents?" Because they knew my parents was all just. I call them religious fanatics, but they were just sold out to Jesus. They say, ain't you know about God and church? And he said, man, I went to church with my aunt, and he said, I felt something. He said, you think all that's real? And again, I'm convicted when I'm doing wrong. I said, man, let's shoot pool. Let's don't talk church. And the next day, that fella was actually in a car wreck and died. And so a few weeks went by. I had just dreams. I dreamed we all were in hell is what my reality was, and we don't hear a lot about that nowadays. But then the preachers they talked about hell when I was a teenager all the time. But I dreamed we were in hell, and they were pointing fingers at me, saying, you knew and came here. We asked you, and you was too ashamed to tell. And in that church service that night, I was thinking about. It's like I was thinking about that, and that's when I really felt like the Lord reminded me that doctor said, unless the Lord performs a miracle, you're not going to be with us in the morning. And I felt in my mind, I don't know if it was a Lord's voice. I felt like you need to make a choice. And I remember it. I could take you into church and show you where it was at. I just jumped up and I ran to the altar and I said, Lord, you got to change me. You got to change me. And he did. I mean, I hadn't been perfect, but I mean, I've made mistakes, but there's never in 30, almost 35 years, there's never been a day I've just not had I'm sold out that, I'm going to live for the Lord.
Why do you think members of the community need to be involved and that might sound like a dumb question, but so often we go living in a county our whole lives and never really knowing what's going on, or we just go to work and come home and go to sporting events, or we have no idea what's going on, in our own county, in our own backyard.
Until you go to build a house and the impact fee is almost tripled from what it was. Or some other rule has changed, like it used to be 2 acres for a piece of property, and now it's 5. Yeah. The decisions that are made there affect you, whether you go or not. You can be a part of the process, and even if everything isn't what you want it to be, you have a say in it. There's something to that.
Do you think people just don't care anymore?
I don't know that they don't care. People are busy. People stay so busy. If you've got kids playing ball, if you're involved in different whatevers, it's easy to say, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. But with county commission meetings being online, you don't really have an excuse to not watch. And if you have questions, there are people you can ask. You can call your commissioner and ask questions.
How can people do that? And I'm speaking, from a personal standpoint. If I want to call up my commissioner right now, where can I go to find his information?
You can call the county commission office and ask them, and they will give you a phone number or get a message to them where they can call you.
Will they do that, or will they?
They should.
Dodge.
They should. There have been some in the past that have dodged and not returned phone calls. But if you don't return calls to your constituents, the people that voted you into office, that tends to have consequences when it's time to vote. It depends on if someone is willing to run against whoever's in office. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to want to run, even in county politics. Sometimes state national is so yucky. And sometimes people associate that with county as well. It's on a smaller level here. But I mean, if you've got a heart for politics, why wouldn't you?
Talk about voter education for me a little bit.
Okay.
We talked about this a little bit before, but so often times we see, I've seen this shift in my lifetime from where you can trust what the media is saying about a politician, or somewhat, to where everybody has an opinion, whether that's X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any sort of social media platform. And your favorite influencer, your favorite vlogger, whatever, they're all pushing an agenda. They're all pushing a certain politician. And I see a lot within my generation they're voting based off of how their favorite vlogger, how their favorite influencer, what they're pushing. Why do you think that is so dangerous?
Why would I take someone else's opinion and vote with that if they're going to make decisions that are going to influence my life? That makes no sense to me. I do have an education page. It's an election information page on where people, 500 words or less, tell me who you are and why you're running. And don't tell me about your opponent, because I want to know why you're running. Where's your heart? Why are you doing what you're doing? And then how can people reach you if they have questions? People need to dig. I'm not going to take anybody's word, especially in this day and age, to tell me what the truth is. Because a lot of times people have an agenda. Follow the agenda, follow the money, follow whatever.
Why have we stopped thinking for ourselves when it comes to politics and forming our own opinions?
laziness. It's easier to let somebody else do the work than to dig and do it ourselves.
So you're saying let them do the work and let them tell us who to vote for. And we say, okay, we trust you.
Some people are like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'll put the information out there. Don't just trust what I say. Do some digging, ask some questions.
Yeah, so by the time of fall of 2024, eczema completely covered my legs and arms. Just everywhere. All over my feet, all over my hands. And I was just like, I had self-medicated with steroids to try and help it that we had in the cabinet. And I was like, well, maybe if I just take the steroids, it'll go away. And it didn't. And then I would take Benadryl every single night to go to sleep because the itching was so bad and so painful. And I was like, I was just exhausted, like physically, mentally, I'm in pain. I can't do anything because I can't move. It hurts to move. And then someone at our church was working at a holistic health clinic. She's a physician's assistant. And she was telling us about her clinic and everything. And I was like, well, I have like really bad eczema. Maybe I should check them out. And at this point, I hadn't showed my mom what my skin looked like. I was so insecure about it. I just had on long sleeves all the time, long pants. She didn't know the extreme to where it had gone, but I really pushed her to but let's make an appointment. I want to go here because, allergy medicines, Benadryl, steroids that we had in the house, they weren't working. And I missed this part. When I was in middle school, I would go to see an allergy specialist a lot. And I ended up taking allergy shots for a little while. And those made me sick. So I had to stop taking them. And so that's kind of where I was like, obviously, this traditional medicine didn't help me at all. So why would I continue to try it? I want to do something different. I was so desperate for a solution. And so a lady at our church was telling us about the holistic health clinic. And I was like, I'm going to go here and I want to see if they can help me. So we book an appointment, and that October of 2024, I go in, and it's just like a basic consultation. And she's like, okay, so what's your problem? I'm like, well, I have really bad eczema. So I show her my arms, and you can see it. It's all over my arms. And then I was like, well, I have it all over my legs too. So I pull up my pants and my mom starts crying because of how bad it had gotten, and I didn't tell her. And sorry, I feel so bad about it now, but it was terrible. And of course, I'm insecure about it. I don't want her to see. I didn't want anyone to see it. So I show her my leg, and the doctor's like, this is the worst case of eczema we've ever seen in our clinic, ever. And she had seen some crazy things before, right? 'Cause, she's been doing this a long time. People come in and they're desperate for solutions. And mine was just so bad.
Where did boxing begin for you?
For me, it started when I was 6 years old. As a 6-year-old kid, I went to wrestling, and everything they did in wrestling, I come home and tried. And so my dad was laying on the floor after doing construction all day, and I said, oh, it's the perfect time to try out that move, the Brain Buster. The Brain Buster is when you climbed on the rope, jumped off, and headbutted the person on the mat. And I said, oof, it's time. My dad was laying there, and I got on the back of the couch and jumped off and said, argh. And he's like, and got mad. And then he checked to see if I would make sure I wasn't dead or bleeding. And then he told my mom, he said, tomorrow he's going to the gym. I'm going to get his butt whooped. Do some boxing, get his butt whooped, and he won't want to do this crazy stuff no more. Well, my dad took me to the gym on Wednesday. I boxed, okay, had fun. And then the guy, Lamar Goff, said, hey, they have a match Saturday if he wants to fight. And my dad said, you want to try that? And I was like, sure. And we did, and I came walking out, and all the fans were cheering, and I was hooked. I was a little addict.
At 6 years old.
6 years
So
old.
he took you into the gym on a Wednesday and you fought on a Saturday?
I lost. Lost my first fight, but I had fun. My dad said, "You still want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we had 250 amateur fights as a kid from 76 until 1990. I mean, at one time we were going all the time. I mean, every other weekend we were going somewhere.
And your mom, she was okay with?
She didn't mind when I was a little kid. Now, when I got older and could actually get hurt, she really wasn't too happy with me fighting at that time. But I was already hooked. I was a little addict, so you weren't going to deter me from doing it.
What do you think really drew you into the sport? What do you think hooked you? Was it seeing the lights and the fans, or?
It's all a part of that. I mean, them calling your name, you walking out to the ring, and all these people cheering for you is addictive. Getting in the ring and being able to pummel somebody is addictive. Or even being able to go out there and make them miss and you hit them. It's a weird feeling. I mean, I got kids that come to my gym now, and I mean, it's hard to explain what makes you want to get in the ring and hit somebody. But it's no different. I didn't like playing, baseball or football, because I played a lot of the sports. But if I gave 100% and you gave 60, we could lose because of you. I didn't like that. I didn't like knowing that you control whether or not I lost. Where in boxing, if I gave my hardest, there's some guys that's just better than you. There's ain't nothing you can do about it. But if I felt like if I gave my best, gave 100%, I was going to win. And 226 wins later, yeah.
Yeah, that's because I've never done boxing before. I always did football or basketball, and so that was always a dilemma for me. Was if I felt like I was putting in 100% and nobody else would, I mean, we still would lose. Oftentimes there was teams that were just a lot better than us. But it would drive me crazy knowing that I was the one putting in 100%, and there were people that were, giving
just lollygagging around
70%.
Yeah. I didn't like playing sports like that. I wanted whatever I did. I wanted to do all out. I wanted to give everything, no matter what it was. I wanted to give my best. I see that in my son Josiah, and my son Matthew as well. Both of them have that. If they're going to do something, they're going to do it to the best of their ability. Josiah is a perfectionist, and it just would drive him crazy. He was doing at 8 years old. He was trying to solve the Rubik's Cube, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And he was like, like a little crack addict, And I'm like, go to bed. He got up the next morning with a fresh mind. Said, fix it. He's like, oh. So that being driven to do something is a good trait, but at the same time, it can work against you as well. Like everything in life, has good examples from it, and it has some bad examples from it. Life, that's how life is.
We're going to be making some moves in third that I'd love to call on you. 9 months went by, and I guess they made the move, so I was the auxiliary fill-in guy, playing mandolin, banjo, acoustic, and electric, and just singing harmonies with him. So learned a ton through that. He was a great leader. And somebody asked me the other day who one of the most influential people were in my life on another podcast, and I said him, no doubt, because great spiritual leader, brother from another mother, doesn't get shaken easily. He's really even and calm, and I can be a little high strung and high energy. So he was a good emotional stability in my life, and so many relationships came from just knowing him, because he's treated people so well over the years. So he would then say, hey, this is my friend Howard. He likes to fish. He likes to hunt. He likes to be in the outdoors. And so many of these people that we would be around have those types of places. And Mac doesn't use those. He's like, he don't do much of that kind of stuff. So he's like, man, you need to know Howard. He loves to be outdoors and sit out there and put hooks on things on clear line and drop it in the water and hope something, bites the other end of it. Called fishing. I love it. So he's connecting with so many different people like that, and sports things that I love, and way beyond the music. He is my brother and I love him.
How did you learn how vital was that incorporation of you into that band for you at that time in your life?
Yeah, that's really good. It still follows me today, as far as like people wanting to record with me and to say, hey, we like this record that you and Mac produced together, or we met you on the road when you were on the road with Third Day. So a lot of people, the Lord used that as a platform. And I just remember early on, I had a mentor that told me in my teenage years, it said, if you could be entrusted with the little things, the bigger things will follow. So I treated like every band in every situation, whether it was $25 or, $250. I treated every situation with the same equal playing field. I do the same thing in the studio now when I've got 8 artists recording right now, and it's a lot, but it's awesome, but they're not all on the same level. Some are super talented. Some are not so much. They're just learning. So some are paying the full rate. Some are not able to. They're all treated the same. So I just think that's fair and just a good way to be in life. If some people can't pay, you pay it forward. You just do. If you feel called to do it, you do it.
When you were 21 and got that call from them, did you then come on full time?
I was contracted. So they would book tours and they'd say, hey, do you want to do this tour? And if it made sense, I would do it. I think I only said no to not, it wasn't a tour. It was like a one run thing. And we were about to have a baby. So I was like, I'm going to hang on back. But, and it was a far run. It wasn't close, but it was just from tour to tour and kind of based off of that. Yeah.
So in that, how did you end up meeting and connecting with Crowder?
We played Arlington Stadium, and Crowder, was a dual headliner. And he said, hey man, I'm on third. He was kind of doing the rootsy techno thing, but there wasn't a ton of banjo and stuff in it. And he was just like, hey man, why don't you come join me on my set? Because he heard us sound checking. You play mandolin and banjo with me? I was like, sure. He's like, my stuff? I was like, some of it. He's like, well, just fake it. It's fine. Just get up there to look cool. So we get up there. And then Third Day decided to take the following spring off. And so he's like, hey, I said, hey, dude, I was like, I'm not doing anything in the spring other than recording. So he took me out with him. We did about 25, 30 shows together and had a blast. And then realized he had moved to Atlanta then. I was like, hey, man, I'm in Griffin. He's like, I'm in Atlanta. Let's hang out. He had moved there from Texas. So
is he still local to Georgia now?
He's still in Atlanta, yeah.
Okay.
He is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I saw him for the first time a few years ago when we went to Winter Jam.
Oh yeah.
And I absolutely fell in love with it. It was great.
Yes.
It's a different sound. I mean, when you look at somebody like him, you don't expect that's the direction he's going with his music. This mountain man looking individual.
Individual. I know. And he's so electric. You just feel like you're a part of it. He's so inviting.
So where did you go from there? How long were you with Mac Powell and Third Day?
Yeah, and all that. That was like a good 10-year stretch of me touring. So in 2018, Third Day did their farewell tour, and we closed it out at Red Rocks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because
it's beautiful.
It's a bucket list destination.
It's amazing. I've played there 3 times. Mac and I did Nights of Worship with Tomlin there after Third Day did their 2018 farewell tour. We did Yeah, we went and Mac just did like a night of worship with Crowder. I'm sorry, with Tomlin and Matt Redman and some others, and man, it was beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing to see God's creation like that, and then it holds 9,250 people, and Third Day sold it out, and it's just like you're looking out there of this sea of worship, you know, just everybody's, because you're in this amazing setting. It's like you can't not, you know, go, there's a God. Like, how are the rocks red? And like, you know, it's incredible. The skyline's beautiful. And you can sign, there's a tunnel that takes you to the stage and you can sign the wall. And I got as close to Tom Petty as I could to sign. Because he's probably one of my most, outside of bluegrass, he's my most probably influential artist, just because he's really real, and he's wasn't the best singer, but he could tell a story and he knew how to tie all that stuff together, and he's really real and raw. And I just always like that. I'm not a big effects person and like keyboard, computer music. I've never been, I guess because of bluegrass. So if it's a real guitar, I'm in a real guitar on a human that just tells a great story, I'm a sucker for it, you know?
Did you ever have the opportunity to meet Tom Petty?
I didn't. I've never met any of them. I've had the great fortune to meet some great people and great artists, but he wasn't one of them. I've been to 4 of his shows though. Me and my wife went, we saw the Eagles with him, and
whoa,
they saw some pretty awesome. Yeah, there's been some great nights of music.
When your whole upbringing is revolved around your father, who anytime you make a mistake is going to tell you made a mistake and is going to look down on you and is going to shove it down your throat that you did something wrong, and see, it's because you can't this and you can't this and negative. What that does, and this is why it's so important just from a biblical standpoint, what that does is that unfortunately affects your relationship with the Father. Because now, for me, one of the things I struggle with is this cycle of always feeling like the only time God the Father, just God, loves me is when I'm doing things the right way. Because I grew up my whole life as a kid, as a teenager, trying to earn my Father's love. Because that was never communicated to me. Verbally, physically, none of that. It was never communicated. And so, for me now, like as a child of God, I have put those things from my past, I've allowed those things from my past to cloud my relationship with God, to where I feel like, ooh, if I am reading my Bible every single day, I'm praying, I'm doing good things, then God loves me. But the moment I don't do those things, or I mess up, or I forget to read the Bible, or, I do this, God doesn't love me anymore. And he's mad at me and he wants to punish me. And so now I'm a failure. Now, see, my dad was right. See, I can't do this. And it affects that relationship, because now I'm no longer fully realizing the unconditional love of the Father. That's like, hey, yeah, what you did was wrong. Or, hey, the relationship has been one-sided. Like, you haven't been listening to me, you haven't this, but I still love you. And I'm still going to love you. And your actions and your works don't affect that. They communicate to me that you love me, but it does not, when you fail to meet the mark or whatever, that does not make me love you less. And so that's been a struggle. I'm very critical of myself. I'm very hard on myself. A lot of times when I preach, I always, like, I'm very transparent of my shortcomings. I think to a fault, to where it's like, man, like, give yourself a break, Raymond. Like you don't need to always be so
hard on yourself.
That's what I grew up with. And so that's how it's affected my worldview, or really just affected my relationship with the Lord.
You were doing everything right. You were getting good grades. You said you were doing well in sports, clubs, staying out of trouble.
Yep.
Trouble. And then something happened your junior year that
Yeah.
just wrecked everything.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Again, I would have identified like as a follower of Jesus. I had been baptized before. I had raised my hand to accept Jesus in my heart, all that stuff. And was kind of just, again, doing the right good things for God to love me. Like it was that same concept again of I was doing all these good things. And so if I was doing all these good things, God loves me now.
It was a vending machine of sorts. You would put something in, which
Right.
was, being a good student.
Yes.
Following the rules. And you would get something out in return, God's love.
All to just because I was trying to gain my father's love, but also gain the love of God, the Father, the Father. And so doing all these good things. Well, my junior year, I overheard my parents arguing, and it kind of sounded like maybe my dad was being unfaithful to my mom, and like, this girl or that. And so they were just arguing, getting really upset, and overheard this argument. My dad, I vividly remember where I was in this moment. We were living in Menifee, California, which is between San Diego and like LA, Orange County area. And my dad said, "Hey son, did you overhear this argument from your mom and I?" I was like, "Yeah, Dad, yeah, I did." He said, "Well, hey, I just want you to know," and he looked me right in the eyes. He said, "I just want you to know I would never cheat on your mom because I love you and your brothers so much." And for somebody who grew up never hearing from his father, "Hey son, I love you. Hey son, I love you." That was a big deal for me. Because remember, I've grown up my whole childhood was trying to earn the love of my dad. So in that moment, when he looked me in the eyes and he told me that, I think it was maybe sophomore year, maybe junior. When he told me that, my dad's right. My mom's wrong. Something's up. She's crazy or something. I don't know. But my dad told me he loves me and he would never do that. So, fast forward a month or so, and my buddy and I are at the mall going to watch a movie, because that was the thing to do. Just by the way, we hung out at the mall because there was girls there, and so you could hang out, and there was a movie theater, so we went to go to watch a movie. And my buddy's in the car, and he says, "Hey, stay in the car." And he gets out of the car, and we're in the parking lot, and he starts walking somewhere. I'm like, "What's going on?" And a minute or so later, I see my dad kind of walk in the parking lot, and he has a girl with him, a lady with him, and he's holding her hand. And I'm like, "That's not my mom." And I remember panicking and just being totally just disoriented. And I remember like tucking under my car so he couldn't see me, and just being absolutely crushed. And my buddy told me, "Yeah, I saw him, but I jumped out of the car because I wanted to see if it was actually him." And I remember I went home that night and I was in my bed. I called my Theo. So that's my uncle from my dad's side of the family. And I just started weeping and just telling him what happened. And that rocked me to the core. And probably about a year afterwards, my senior year of high school, I was like, hey, I've been doing all the right things. I've been like getting good grades, staying out of trouble. I never smoked, drank in my life. Everyone, like, anytime time I go to friends' houses, like, I was the good kid. Like, didn't do any of the foolishness my friends were doing, like, in sports and all that. And this is what I get? Like, I get to experience this? I might as well just live however I want to then, because clearly it doesn't matter. And out of that hurt, when I got into my first year of college, first year of college, I just started. My wild side is probably very tame compared to other people's story. But I remember just throwing parties at my house, or my house, my mom's house. My parents got a divorce, obviously, and I got into smoking a lot of pot for a while in college, and I was had a girlfriend that I was sleeping with, and I just kind of just lived how I wanted, but I was a very hurt person because I felt like I did all these things for God, and He allowed me to go through that's pretty traumatic for a sophomore, junior in high school to see that with your dad.
And in October 2018, I totally fell apart and did not want to live anymore, was having suicidal thinking, and was in major depression. And one of the issues that came out was, and I would have said I've forgiven my father, I've moved on, but there was a very deep root of hatred which God surfaced during the counseling journey. And I had to let God heal that area during that journey. And one of the mental visual pictures that I had in a dream one evening was my dad was in a bamboo cage, caught in his own prison with the key in the door and never knowing how to come out. I was in a similar type prison of unforgiveness, bitterness, shame, guilt, hatred for me. I'm worthless. I'm useless. But I've opened the door and I'm coming out. And it was in that dream that I was able to tell my dad, I forgive you. I love you. You're my dad. And go in peace. And I heard him say back, I love you too. I forgive you. And I was able to let go of the bitterness and the hatred.
Why is bitterness and hatred so destructive?
The only one who's really a prisoner to it is the person holding it. The other person you may hate, be bitter about, resentful toward, they don't care. They don't know it. They're going to go on about their life. The only one who's the prisoner is the person holding the hatred, bitterness, resentment, because they're the one getting eaten up by it like a cancer.
What led to this this implosion in 2018?
I just hit that break point of where I was living by the lie of I'm worthless, I have no value, I'm unlovable, and no one cares. And at 60, I just fell apart. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I'm the one in the business of helping others my whole career. But the beauty of that moment was a colleague and friend of mine had taken the L3 suicide intervention skills training we've been doing in the community since 2013. And it's equipping people how to help others who may be in a crisis moment. One of my colleagues had taken the training October 2018, and 2 weeks later was the one who intervened on me and took me to help. So that was a gift of God's intervention.
If you found any value whatsoever in today's episode or any of our previous ones, head on over to YouTube and subscribe. Once you're done there, go to wherever you listen from. So this could be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube Music. Follow the show there. And if you're feeling extra generous, give it a 5-star review. All of this collectively ensures that more people will hear the show. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.